Good evening, everybody. We'd like to get started, so if everybody could please find a seat. Yeah, including you. Okay, I'm going to need a motion to adjourn exec and re-enter public session. Can I get a motion, Christine, and a second, Barry? All in favor? All right, please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Christine and then Barry. All right, just so you know, we're going to run through a few emergency evacuation procedures. We have a big crowd here tonight. If there should be an emergency, there are exits to the sides and to the back. Please make your way calmly and safely to the exits. And this building, as all buildings in our district, are smoke-free. There's no smoking in our school buildings or on the school grounds. All right, tonight we are going straight to a public hearing for the senior citizen and disabled individual low-income tax exemption. So the purpose of this public hearing is to hear all interested parties and citizens regarding the prospect of adopting exemptions of school taxes at maximum levels of properties owned by senior citizens and disabled persons with low incomes as provided by Real Property Tax Law Section 467 and 459C. Okay, so I need a motion to go into public hearing, please. Up, I got Bill and I got Christine. All in favor? So be it.
Testing, there we go. All right, as Mrs. Hebert mentioned, this is a public hearing to allow the board to consider adoption of the senior citizen low income and disability low income exemptions based on RPTL section 467 and 459C. A little history as to why we're discussing this tonight. Both of these sections of the law provide that a public school district may grant a partial exemption on property owned by eligible senior citizens and disabled persons with limited income, hence the low income title. This goes back a ways into the latter portion of 2006 when the then Huntington Board of Education authorized a partial exemption pursuant to a resolution, basically effective during the 2007-2008 school year. The income levels were established by that real property tax law. I'll show that in a second. The laws also provided for incremental increases in the maximum eligibility. Incrementally meaning each year they go up from 2007-8 through 2010-11, providing that the school district adopted a new maximum each year during that 4-year window. There was nothing in Huntington and in a number of school districts after the end of 2006 time frame for the 2007-8 school year. So basically on the books for Huntington was the exemption level as of 2007-2008. This comes up today because a recent audit of the town determined that said exemptions have been granted at the 2010-11 maximums since that tax year for, and that's not showing the bottom piece of this, for eligible senior citizens and disabled persons with low income. So this gives you a sense of the difference between what was actually adopted by the board and the exemption levels that were actually granted as of 2010. So right now, to make this as concise as possible, and I don't know if you can raise that up a little bit, Kathy, the projector? Okay. Long story short, after 2010, those maximums in the far right column have been granted to those senior citizens eligible and disabled persons eligible with low incomes. The board had not adopted those levels formally. They were still on the books for adoption of the middle column levels. So technically what should have been exempted were those levels as opposed to the levels on the right. So what is being requested now is that the board maintain the exemptions at the 2010-11 maximums, but do it in the properly authorized fashion. Again, this is up to the board, not the town. Unfortunately, this did not happen the right way at the town level. The town will not make any historical adjustments, and this will have no impact on anybody's tax bill moving backward. As far as financial impact for the district, there will be none because the exemptions are being granted already, even though the proper authorization is not in place. If the board chooses not to adopt the resolutions, and by the way, this is a public hearing, this would not be on the agenda for board adoption until the first February meeting agenda. But if the board chooses at that time not to adopt the 2010-11 maximums, it would increase the assessed valuation of eligible properties and marginally reduce the tax rate in general, and I'll show that in numbers very shortly. So what we're looking at, and we're doing some estimating here based on the data that we did receive from the town assessor's office, based on 2017-18 financial data, the shift to taxpayers not receiving the exemption, if this had been done in the manner that the board had adopted, it would be at the 2007-8 maximum levels. If that had been adhered to, $61,000 would have been back in the hands of those not receiving the exemption. These are connected to individuals who have applied, and there would be about another $20,000 shift, or add to that total another $20,000 related to seniors receiving the exemption via affidavit. So if you put those two numbers together, and this is about as close as we're going to get to the actual shift in total, but the town assessor has suggested that the total between 80 and 90,000 has remained relatively constant since 2010-11. Hasn't changed much since then. And again, we're talking about what would have been in place via 2007-8, but instead was adopted at the unauthorized 2010-11 maximums. This shows it in a format that the board has seen before. We are looking at, I used an assessed valuation change of about $85,000. If the 2007-8 exemptions had been done correctly at the town level, at 2007-8 maximums, it would have added about $85,000 to the total assessed valuation in the town, and it would have lowered the tax rate for those not receiving the exemption by just under 0.2%. And just to give you a sense of what that looks like on a tax bill, the average assessed value of $3,600, it's about $15.84. It would have been back in the non-exempt household pockets. That's the abridged version. So what we're asking for now is for the board, not now, but at the next meeting, is for the board to adopt these two exemptions at the 10-11 maximums. The program ended at that point, so there was nothing after 10-11. And again, it would not have any impact on the people in this room because those exemptions have been granted anyway, despite the lack of authorization. Good?
Thank you. All right. Did anybody have any questions or comments about this? Thank you. Yes, and I will express that. All right. I'm opening up to my fellow trustees at the table if they have any comments or questions.
So just to be straightforward about it, Jim, is that basically the town has been doing these exemptions and without our authorization is the bottom line.
It's impacted a number of school districts, and the exemptions were there. There is a resolution in place for it's a 4-year exemption program. It's still in place. The authorization is for 2007-2008 maximum levels. Each year they went up through 2010-11. There was no authorization via adoption in place after 2007-2008. So it should have stayed at those levels. It didn't. They increased it incrementally each year, and since 10-11, it has been granted to the exempt households at the 10-11 maximums when it should have been at the 7-8 maximums.
Okay.
And that's a difference of about between 80 and 90,000 per year since 10-11.
Now, this is a public hearing, which I'm assuming means that if the public wants to speak to this specific issue, you can come to the mic now. I know many of you are here to speak on a different issue, but right now we're in the public hearing for this issue. Is there anybody that wants to approach the mic to speak about this? Any questions or comments? All right.
Okay, and
then
this,
I'm gonna,
again, this will be on the February agenda for board consideration and formal
Excellent.
adoption.
all right, very good. We're going to move ahead then. Okay, we're up to approvals. It is behind. Oh, we have to motion to go back into?
Yes, please.
Yes, okay, so I need a motion to go back in. Thank you, Tom. One, I need and Xavier is our second. All in favor? Thank you for that reminder. Okay, now we're to approvals. So, first thing is the Board of Education meeting minutes of December 10th, 2018. It is upon recommendation from the Superintendent of Schools that the Board of Education approve the minutes of December 10th, 2018. Can I get a motion, please? Barry, and a second. Tom, all in favor? Very good, that was everyone. We have 3 FYIs. We have an FYI for our budget appropriation reports for general school lunch and special aid funds as of 12/13/18. We have an FYI of budget transfers, and finally an FYI of revenue status reports as of 12/31/18. We all got those. All right, that brings us to the treasurer's report for November 2018. All right, do we have to,
We have to approve that. I'll make a motion to approve, Jim.
okay,
Second.
I need a second. And Xavier's my second. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, and finally to the warrants. And it is upon recommendation from the Superintendent of Schools that the Board of Education approve the attached warrants, which were certified for payment on December 19th, 2018, and January 3rd, 2019. I need a motion. Linda, and a second is Barry. All in favor? All right, very good. That brings us to board member communications and announcements. All right, is there anybody that has anything they would like to share with us that they've done in the district?
I do.
All right, Christine, we're to you.
I'd like to congratulate the Huntington High School choral program for their spectacular performance on Friday at our first ever Cafe Cabaret, which was transformed the cafeteria into a cabaret atmosphere where they sang their hearts out and entertained their friends and family while they dined on delicious food that was donated by the generous restaurants in our town. And it was I hope the first annual event.
Thank you very much. You're welcome. Did anybody else have anything they wanted to share? All right.
Concerts.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. Go,
Yeah,
Linda.
so, just as always, it was a pleasure to be at the winter concerts. Finley, I was at, it was wonderful, and Huntington High School in particular, always a really special treat to see the closing and hear that Hallelujah chorus. It's emotional to see
Yeah, it is
alumni
emotional,
getting up
and they're
there.
amazing.
Yeah.
And I actually have something to say because I attended the robotics kickoff this past weekend, and it was really exciting. We all got together in the auditorium at the high school, and the kids did a fantastic job presenting what the team does and the different facets of it. And then actually we watched the video twice of the challenge for this year for the competition. I would do a terrible job of explaining to you what needs to be done because I have absolutely none of those skills, but I will tell you that we have a really strong team with a lot of great mentors, and it was really exciting to be there right at the kickoff, and I wish them the greatest luck in their season ahead. So, and that, I think, that deserves a round of applause. Thank you. And Mr. Plansky, that brings us to you, I believe.
I think several of you covered most of that. The robotics challenge this year is titled Destination Deep Space, and there's always some new twist that they add each year, and we're looking forward to the creativity that will be demonstrated by our very talented and creative young people. I will also add that it's incredible that just about halfway through the year, and that brings us about up to budget season and the time that the valuable community input is really needed. You should have, if you haven't already, very shortly we'll receive a budget postcard that outlines the various meetings that are upcoming, and we have a large crowd here tonight. I will throw out there that it is important for as many people as possible to show up at these meetings and share what their priorities are so we can consider them as an administration and as a board throughout the process.
Very good.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to public commentary, and I know many of you are here to speak or to hear others speak. Before we get started, I'm going to just go over the rules and guidelines for how we handle our public commentary. These are available to everybody. I know Joanne copied off a whole bunch. They're basically what to expect at a Board of Education meeting, and it spells out for you the guidelines, but I'm going to say them out loud anyway, just so we're all clear and we're all on the same page. And just so you know, these have been the guidelines that we've been using for years. We didn't come up with these guidelines because we knew we were getting a lot of people here. These guidelines have been used by our Board of Education for Board of Education meetings for years, and I'm just going to go through them briefly so that we're, like I said, so we're clear about how this is going to be handled. So we will have 2 opportunities for public commentary. One will be now, one is at the end of the meeting. Each of those periods of public commentary will be for 30 minutes. You are welcome to come to the mic to speak if you are a resident of the district, a student, or a staff member. It's the way it's always been. Each speaker has 3 minutes to speak, and please don't be offended if I have to remind you that it's your time up. I hate interrupting people, but I'm going to have to do it. We obviously have a lot of people here, and in fairness of time and expediency, I am going to let you know when your time is up. This is important. Please refrain from using personal names of students and staff members. And as a board, please understand that we are, by law, required not to speak about personal students, not to speak about specifics to them, specific names, or specific staff members. And I'm going to ask you to have the same respect. This is not a question and answer time. It's a time for the public to make comments. The board and the superintendent, we will do our best to address the questions and concerns that you bring to our attention during this discussion that follows our first public commentary. But I can tell you, we will not be answering any questions directly while your speakers are at the mic. So, if you're expecting an answer from us, it's not coming while you're standing at that microphone. As I said, we will try to address your concerns and questions during our discussion. Finally, and this is really important, and I've worked on this board for 8 years, and I love and feel strongly about our community. Our school district community is tremendously important to me and so many of you in the room. That's why so many of you have shown up, I'm sure. So I just want to remind everybody that we are a community of residents and teachers and students and parents. We're together on fields and at events and concerts. And so I acknowledge and understand that the issues discussed in the recent article have rightfully generated a lot of strong emotion. No doubt about that. But I also know that we have always handled ourselves in this room with a high level of respect and civility, and that's what I expect from everybody tonight. And so I want to just point out that we have a lot of students in this room. In fact, some of them are my former nursery school students. And therefore, it is our obligation and our opportunity to provide them with an example of what civil discourse really looks like. And that's what I'd like to hear from everybody tonight. And with that, thank you. And with that, I now invite people to come to the mic to speak. Oh, yes, and I'm going to note that we are going to start our stopwatch for everybody, including our staff
You want a
members.
separate stopwatch for the entire?
Yeah, you have that? Can you do that? Okay.
Hold on.
Maybe let them know, Jen, that there'll
Okay.
be a second opportunity.
Yes, if everybody who wants to speak at this first session does not have a chance to speak, there will be a second public commentary session at the end of the meeting. And I'm hoping, truthfully, that many of the questions and concerns that you are all going to bring to the microphone are things that we will be discussing and covering during our discussion. I can't seem to get mine go. Thanks.
Hold on.
Okay.
No, say one.
When?
Good evening. My name is Brendan Cusack, principal of Huntington High School. This is my 7th year in the district, and I am approaching my 23rd year in education. I feel the need to say a few words this evening in response to the recent New York Times piece, which I believe is a clear misrepresentation of our school and of me, both personally and professionally. While there are details that I'm not permitted to speak about in regard to a student or a disciplinary matter, I do need to say that the story as published is not the whole story, and the interactions portrayed in the piece were mischaracterized and decontextualized, which furthered the narrative of the story. I do believe in reflecting upon practice and working to continuously improve the ways in which we serve all of our amazing and our deserving students. I believe in this reflection not because of a printed story, but because it is always right to do so. It is not hard to reflect. It is not hard to work to improve. It is hard, however, to read a piece and for your students, your faculty, your community, and your family to read a piece which paints you in a way that is exactly the opposite of everything that you stand for and believe in. I appreciate this opportunity to briefly speak. I know a lot of people want to say some words. I do cherish the work that I'm able to do with and for the children of this community. I'm grateful for the many notes of encouragement that I've received over the last number of days from those who do, in fact, know what I believe in and stand for. Thank you.
Thank you, Brendan. Hi, Mr. Koleka.
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Kaleka, and I am a Huntington Station resident, and I am currently the Dean of Students at Huntington High School. First of all, it was fantastic to see so many of our former students here and our current students here. I'm not a big protocol guy. I don't know if I'm supposed to face this way, but I don't want to. I want to actually talk to you because I didn't write anything down. I am finishing my 31st year in education. 31 years, Brooklyn, Queens, and out here. I know Brendan Cusack, the principal, and I know Brendan Cusack, the man. The principal is one of the fairest principals I've ever worked for. He always has time for students. His door is always open. Even in the midst of this, Mr. Cusack said to me this week, "Paul, if any students want to talk to me, please bring them down to see me, and I will make time for them." He always does. When he first came on, students said to me, I've been there longer, "What's the new guy like?" And I said one word, he's fair. He's very fair. He's also one of the most intelligent men I know. Brendan Cusack, the man, has got one of the biggest hearts of anyone I know. I know the man. In 31 years, in several schools, I have never seen a principal cry with students, for students. I've witnessed it. I know this man. I know him professionally. I know him personally. I've been doing this job for 31 years. I can retire in June. I would not put my reputation on the line if I did not believe what I'm saying. I walked away from a job as an assistant principal because I didn't align myself. I didn't like the way the tone of that was. This is one of the most outstanding, not only principals, but men that I have met. And I want to share that with everyone here, and more importantly, with my community. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Diana Weaving. I'm a 26-year resident of the Township of Huntington, and I'm here on behalf of a community of concerned citizens regarding the treatment of immigrant students in the school district, mostly as a result of school resource officers. And I will be handing out to board members what it is that we're going to be reading. Can you hear me okay? Is this okay?
It's better.
Okay. Dear school officials, we are concerned residents of the Huntington community, parents, students, alumni, and community advocates. Because of the way incidents have been handled at Huntington High School, Huntington immigrant students who were afraid of gangs were falsely labeled gang members without evidence. Distorted information made its way from the school to the Suffolk County Police Department to Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE. This caused the arrest of one student and the deportation of another student, and has left the families of immigrant students and students themselves devastated and terrified. There have been 2 reports on this issue that involved 2 of our Huntington High School students. The first time was on February 13th, 2018, when a documentary by PBS Frontline titled The Gang Crackdown was aired with an accompanying article by Patrice Tedonio, entitled How the U.S. Fueled the Rise of MS-13. And a second time in the New York Times on December 27, 2018, an article by Hannah Dreer titled How a Crackdown on MS-13 Caught Up Innocent High School Students. According to the PBS Frontline article by Patrice Tedonio, quote, both teens had been identified as gang members in ICE memos containing information from public high schools. Frontline found that school resource officers, who are police embedded in local schools, collected information that was in turn shared with federal immigration authorities, close quote. We present this list of demands and we ask you take immediate action in order to protect the safety and well-being of every student, including immigrant students attending our schools. 1, we ask that the Huntington School District establish a Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, with specific guidelines, restrictions,
I'm
and
just going to warn you, you
procedures
only have 30 seconds left.
between the police department and the school district.
Oh. You still had 20 seconds. Oh, okay. You still had 20 seconds.
We'll move on. To
Okay, very good. All right.
do these go to a clerk? I'm not sure how this is done.
It can go to the district clerk at the
Yeah,
end of
and
the
then,
table.
thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank
Okay.
you.
My name is Lynn Geisler. I'm a 40-year resident of Huntington. My children went to, when this was Huntington Elementary School, they went to Findlay, they went to Huntington High School. I'm very concerned about what's going on here, and I'm going to continue reading some of our demands. The Memorandum of Understanding with the Police Department should mandate strong data collection by both police and the school. Police should provide monthly reports of crime incidents on school property. This report should include the number of times law enforcement was called for help, number of arrests, and which arrests were made for school-related offenses. This report should indicate school site, offense, and student subgroup, including but not limited to age, race, ethnicity, gender, and English language learner status. The report should also indicate the arresting agency. Data should also be included on the preventative attempts taken by school officials to address this with students before referring to law enforcement. Preventative attempts should include referrals of students to wellness centers and other school and community resources and organizations. This data should be reported publicly during school board meetings and should be reported on a quarterly basis on the school's district website. The school district should require several hours of training for the school resource officer, school security guards, and staff, including but not limited to trainings on the following areas: cultural competencies, strategies to address biases and prejudice, child and adolescent development and psychology, age-appropriate responses, restorative justice, special accommodations for students with disabilities, practices proven to improve school climate, the creation of safe spaces for LGBTQ students and immigrant students, trauma-informed practices, youth development, special education laws, strategies for working and communicating with students in special needs education, students of color, and immigrant students, school-wide positive behavioral interventions and support system, working with youth with disabilities or physical, emotional, or mental conditions. Training of school personnel, including security guards, should not be conducted by law enforcement. I'm a retired New York City high school teacher. I taught in Queens. We had a very, very diversified population, and I don't think we ever experienced anything where ICE took one of our students for deportation, and we had students from 52 different countries.
You have just 15 seconds left.
Okay, it is my concern and desire that all students be treated with respect and dignity, and that there is no school to deportation pipeline. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm Susan Witterman Blog, and I'm continuing. Number 4, the school district should also revise and make appropriate changes to the school code of conduct and disciplinary guidelines and procedures to prevent students from being racially profiled and unjustly targeted. The code of conduct revision should be made in collaboration with input from concerned community members. The code of conduct should be provided to parents and students in a language they are comfortable understanding. There should be student and parent meetings to present the code of conduct and include the disciplinary guidelines and appeal process. The role of the security guard should be clearly delineated in the code of conduct, and to what extent they will be interacting with the police should be indicated in the MOU. School officials and staff should connect and establish working relationships with local community organizations and resources to bring much needed support to students, organizations including Long Island Immigrant Student Advocates, Inc. Number 7, the school should create a safe and secure environment for all students. Students should be provided with the proper information and guidelines as to who and where to report incidents of discrimination, intimidation, bullying, harassment, and interrogation by schools' security guards, SROs, other students, and or school personnel. The Huntington School District must develop a policy that protects the confidentiality of students who report any of the above-mentioned incidents to protect them from possible retaliation and or racially biased profiling by the school community, local law enforcement, and or immigration policy, respectfully submitted by the Huntington School District community.
Thank you very much.
My own remarks. I am Susan
1
Witterman
minute.
Blogg, a Huntington High School graduate and an advocate for justice. My 2 brothers graduated from Huntington, as did my 2 children and my niece and 2 nephews, sister-in-law and her siblings. My mother taught at Huntington High School. She was the chairman of the business department. I used to tease her that she didn't teach business, but morals and values. We are all proud to be part of a diverse Huntington community. The article in the New York Times by Hannah Dreher sets Huntington as an example of the immigration policies now in place in our government. We as a community must respond to these policies and set an example for the rest of America. We must respond with humanity and kindness. We are all immigrants. My 4 grandparents all came from Russia. We are a nation of immigrants that came here for liberty, freedom, and a better life. I ask this board and the community to get rid of Operation Matador, work to reunite Alex with his family, close the detention centers, and treat all people of color equally.
Thank you very much. Jim. Okay, I'm sorry, go right ahead.
My name is Josh Dubnow. I live in Huntington. I've got a kid in the public schools at the Woodhull School. I support all of the demands that were just made, and I want to say that I have a personal connection to this issue because my own mother came to this country in 1941 as a child refugee escaping Nazi violence in Europe. Superintendent Jim Polanski, on November 23rd of 2016, I wrote to you by email, and we had several follow-up conversations. In my email, I wrote, quote, "There has been a dramatic rise in our country in the level of overt threats and acts of violence against immigrants, people of Muslim faith, Jews, women, African Americans, and the LGBT community. I asked at that time that the district take an explicit stand in defense of the emotional and physical well-being of all of the children, by making a statement declaring that this, quote, the school district would not share private information about children or their families with any outside entities, unquote. At that time, you assured me that this was not necessary. You said, quote, we are always looking to further build upon a culture of compassion, respect, and acceptance in Huntington, unquote. You said that there were, quote, many things in place on both the curricular and extracurricular levels that are designed to support students' socio-emotional well-being and promote the culture described above, end quote. Because you had earned my trust and respect, I did not pursue this further at that time. My trust in you at that time is something I now deeply regret. Since then, we have learned that the high school administration and the SRO were racially profiling Latino students. We learned that displays of cultural identity and many normal adolescent misbehaviors were selectively labeled as gang-related or not based on the race or country of origin of that child. We learned that the SRO in school were labeling children without evidence as being gang associates and passing this information to ICE via the police.
You have
To
one more
quote-
minute.
To quote from the New York Times article, quote, many of the minors had been sent to a high-security detention center for children in Virginia, where some were strapped to chairs with their heads covered or held naked in dark rooms. A 15-year-old Huntington child attempted suicide twice. I am stunned to learn that the administration knew about this situation for many months, during which no actions were taken. Only after this was exposed in the mass media was there any statement to the school community and to the district. Our children and our community were betrayed. I feel betrayed. My trust in you is shattered. My trust in the school district, my faith in its fairness and its ability to protect my child's Latina friends is devastated. This school board and administration needs to re-earn our trust, and it will be a challenge for you to do so. As a starter, the demands that you just heard need to be met. Members of the Latino community must be dominant presence within that decision-making process.
Your time is up, sir.
I just want to say one final sentence. I think the ACLU should be involved in consulting on this, and the system needs to be transparent.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Graciela Goldenthal-Stecker, resident of Huntington for the last 25 years. My daughter graduated from Huntington High School in 2014 and currently is working and living full-time in Washington, D.C. Prior to attending college, she grew up attending Huntington Public Schools. She's very successful, not because of her time in Huntington, but despite it. From the time she entered kindergarten, our family knew that children who recently immigrated from Central and Latin America were set up to fail. In elementary school, when she was supposed to be benefiting from an educational environment, she was expected that due to her dual language skills as an Argentinian dual citizen to translate to and teach other Latino children because the school did not have adequate resources to support students with a language barrier. Our then 5-year-old was compassionate and happy to help her peers, but she should not have been expected to fill a clear resource gap for these students. As our daughter went through schools, she saw and we heard about how Black and Latino students were often policed and more punished for the same childhood violence as their white peers who were rarely experienced disciplinary action. In 2019, racism and prejudice is deeply prevalent in our world, and in Huntington Union Free School District is not exception to that rule. When these stories broke about the failure of Huntington schools to protect their Latino students, we were, of course, very troubled, but not surprised. Our specific disturbance is in the fact that the school district is responsible for attempted suicides and whatever physical, mental, and emotional traumas experienced both within the school and when the students were sent to immigration detention centers. In the event this group is unaware of what occurs in these centers, it's important to note that there were regular and consistent human rights violations and abuses that occur between them.
You have one more minute.
Let's move then to the grievances against Huntington High School District. Racial profiling of Latino students, especially recent immigrants. Targeting of Latino students who display pride for the country of origins. These students should be able to express pride for their home country as much as American students wearing the colors of the American flag or American-inspired apparel. Lack of cultural competency amongst school staff and administrators, insufficient support by staff to recent immigrants and students of color, inadequate opportunities to students and families to defend themselves against allegations of misconduct, suspensions and punishment, which actively pushes students out of school and put them at risk. Huntington participation in the school to prison pipeline. Then demands training for all staff administrations on race, racial profiling, and privilege led by people of color. Also, they have to be some background in the Latino
Excuse me,
community.
I'm so sorry, but your 3 minutes is up. And we have other speakers behind you, but thank you very much, and I
Thank you.
appreciate your statement. I do. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is James Graber. I'm a teacher in the district. I'm a resident in this district. My children go to schools in this district. And I'm also the president of the Teachers Association here. I'm happy to see so many people here this evening and so many familiar faces, particularly those of former students. It's reflective of the passion that I know that this district has and this community has. It's always been my hope that my students would grow into socially conscious and active adults, and I'm proud that hope has borne fruit. I'm here, though, to speak to the item for discussion and action regarding the school resource program. I imagine that this agenda item is the direct result of the New York Times article. Like many of you, I was heartbroken by the story. The notion that a young man may have been unjustly deported, separated from his family, and denied an opportunity for the American dream runs counter to my personal ethos and the values of this community. I recognize that this article cannot portray the entire truth. There are skewed perspectives, missing voices, and a larger agenda at play. A national discussion of the current immigration policy is warranted. Portraying Huntington as its employees as active participants in a conspiracy and a cabal is both unwarranted and unjust. I have lived and worked in Huntington for 20 years. The demographics of this district have changed dramatically in that time, and the district has worked hard to serve the needs of a rising number of Latino and immigrant students. More can always be done, but I have never witnessed anything that approaches the intentional or negligent mistreatment of Huntington students of any background. In the 2 years that have transpired between the incidents described in the actual publication of the article, I understand that there have been several changes to practice in how student data is recorded and transmitted. Since the publication of the article, the district has made clear its intent to formulate a memorandum of understanding with the Suffolk County Police Department. These are reasonable and warranted amendments. The dark rumblings on social media seeking to go further are not. Since Brendan Cusack joined the Huntington School District, he has been a fierce and vociferous advocate for all of our students and our entire community. His commitment to justice stands out as a defining characteristic to me and to those who know him firsthand. He would never be party to the seeming conspiracy described in this article. The character assassinations that have taken place online are a disgrace. This board stands ready to debate the merits of the School Resource Officer Program. To this point in my nearly 2-decade career in Huntington, I have never heard anyone speak ill of the program. Officer Drew Fiorillo has been honored for his service to the district, its students, and this community. He has been honored by the NAACP. He has served as a liaison, a mentor, and an indispensable resource to the students, staff, and administration throughout this district. We live in a politically divisive and volatile time period. It is difficult to conduct a meaningful and productive discussion under the best of circumstances these days. These are clearly not the best of circumstances.
Thanks, James. I'm sorry, time is up, Mr. Graver.
No warning?
I should have given you a warning, but you were coming along so beautifully. I didn't want to interrupt you.
I just would conclude then
Yes.
that I urge this board to carefully consider any decision to weigh the potential long-term consequences against perceived short-term benefits. A year ago, we were discussing the need for more security in this district and throughout this nation because of the incident at Parkland.
Thank
Moving in the other direction would be a mistake. Thank you.
That's excellent. Thank you, James.
I think I only need 2 minutes, so. Mr. Graber can have one of my minutes. I only need 2. Michelle Costera. I'm a resident, parent of 2 children, and the PTA Council president. And I'm speaking on behalf right now of the presidents of all the PTAs in the Huntington School District. In response to school safety advocates and recent school shootings and school safety concerns, the National PTA adopted a position statement in 2018 entitled Safe and Supportive Schools. And I'm just going to read an excerpt from it. I'm going to send the board and the administration the full position statement via email, but I'll read just an excerpt. National PTA recognizes that school safety is a multifaceted issue with no one clear solution for each community. All efforts to address school safety must involve all stakeholders, especially students, parents, and families, and take into account a variety of factors, including physical and psychological safety of students. Any decision regarding physical security measures should be locally determined, collaborative, and specifically include input from students, parents, families, educators, school leaders, and community.
National PTA believes the most effective day-to-day school climate to be gun-free, which includes not arming teachers and administrators, but defers to local collaborative decision-making regarding the presence of law enforcement deployed into the community-oriented policing and school building security. If the decision is made to have a student resource officer or other security agency within a school building, there should be clearly defined memorandum of understanding between the law enforcement agency and the school that articulates the role of the school resource officer. So we as local PTA, we support the role of the school resource officer, but as many of the speakers before us, we had similar points to make, but I won't repeat them regarding a memorandum of agreement, and we support those, a lot of those points, and I'm not going to repeat them. And I'll forward you the position statement from PTA. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hey, I'm going to stop us at these last two speakers because that is going to finish our first session, but you can certainly join us at the second public commentary. I appreciate your understanding. Okay, you two, you're our last two speakers.
Hello, my name is Nancy Davis. I'm a Huntington Station resident. I'm also an ENL teacher in a Nassau County district. I'm very concerned about the safety of the immigrant students at Huntington, but I also wanted to mention that never in my career have I been told by an administrator that I cannot write a letter of recommendation for college, for work, or for court appearance. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. And Dylan.
Hello, my name is Dylan Delgenese. I'm an alumni of Huntington High School. I'm speaking because, just first of all, reading an article from the New York Times was one of the most difficult readings that I've ever done in my life. It just made me really think back on a lot of my kind of own experiences at Huntington High School, and made me feel how I could have stopped it or anything like that. It's a mix of emotions. But I'll start with the good thing that I want to say is that one thing that I've always appreciated about Huntington is the diversity there, Huntington being one of the only school districts on Long Island that reflects the racial makeup of Long Island. That being said, I'm hearing a lot of things about the needs for security and how we've made a lot of efforts in terms of diversity and things. And while the demographics may have changed, I still think we have to judge, in a lot of ways, the tree by its fruits. We do need to speak to how students of color and how other students feel in schools about whether or not we want to take every element of the factualness of the article as truth. I thought one of the most interesting lines in it was that, immigrant students, Hispanic students and things did not feel as comfortable walking by the student resource officer as, white students and other students did. That was something she chose to point out in the article. Another thing was a student, being intimidated to name, other gang members, or possible gang members, I should say, in the district. I think that we need to think about our student resource officers, our police in schools, the way to deal with violence. I think in other parts of Long Island, there have been...
Just so you know, you have 1 minute.
I'm sorry.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
I just want to give you a
There have been gang-related violence and issues, and in many cases, the police have been completely inadequate in handling those issues. In Brentwood, an article from the same ProPublica reporter put that out about police being very negligent in terms of missing students. I think we need to think about other ways that we can deal with issues. I think one way is integrating more low-income students with other students, not forcing students to go into sort of pushed off like AP classes necessarily. Getting ways to have more students interact with each other on a daily basis, I think, is a major way to do that. And I think with that, we don't need police in schools. I think that's a dangerous item, but all right.
Thank you so much, Dylan. I appreciate it. You know, before we move on, I just want to thank everybody. That was as respectful and civil and I think productive a conversation as we could have hoped for in our first public commentary. And so I really appreciate everybody's input and everybody being respectful at the mic. We're going to continue on with our meeting, and if there are further comments that need to be brought to our attention, there's a second public commentary section that we will invite you to speak at. All right, folks, let me get me back onto my page here.
There has been a request at the table to move, just to shift the two items around?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, so that we do the calendar second, but the school resource officer program first. That sounds fine. Do we need to, can we just do it that way? We don't
Yeah,
have
well,
to
you can-
formally. Okay,
They're
good.
both in the same section, so it's
All right,
fine.
very good. All right, then actually, we are going to jump over the district calendar to our conversation about the school resource officer program. And I think we're going to begin with Mr. Plansky.
I can say after reading that article myself, there are many things about it that were upsetting, well, to me personally, and I know a lot of the people in this room. Regardless of the front story or the back story, a family has been fractured, and that is not what this district is all about. The media portrayal, however, is of a place that I don't really recognize. It's not the schools or the people in it that I have come to know in any way, shape, or form. And I can say without any doubt that there is no degree of intent on anyone in this district's part to do anything that's not in the support of a child. But I'd also like to make it clear that a Newsday report was put out there the day or a couple of days following the New York Times piece, and it suggested that I was not, or I was in some way condemning the school resource officer program. This program has been in place in this district and many others for more than 15 years. The truth is it has fostered better relations between the police and school community and has done considerable good for many students and families. I also understand, and I think Dylan pointed this out personally, that the role of law enforcement in schools, particularly in today's political climate, is open to considerable debate. And what I stand in support of, and I have stood in support of for some time, and I can speak to some of those efforts, opening a dialogue to address the topic in a just and reasonable manner which shows consideration, support, and respect for students and their families, and also supports collaboration and effective communication within and beyond our schools, between schools and outside agencies and the like. The media portrayal unfortunately overshadows the diligent efforts put forth by so many people in this district who have dedicated their professional lives to genuinely helping all students, to guiding them toward the best lives possible beyond their years in Huntington. I've been a part of this community for really 17 years, 2 different school districts, but neighboring sister communities. I'll speak to this school district. For years, people who have no connection to this school district have generated opinions on a place about which they know very little. Many have staunchly defended and continue to do so, understanding that community diversity is nothing short of an asset. It's a hard message to get across. And for those that do speak to people outside of the Huntington community proper, you understand what I'm referring to. I don't think I've ever stood alone in believing in this school community and the people who sit at this table and all around this room for that matter. And I certainly understand why many of you wish to express your emotions, whatever they may be. In general, however, those who wish to make presumptions about staff, students, and or the climate in the high school or any school in this district without firsthand experiences, it's an individual decision, but unfortunately this can lead to exactly the mischaracterizations and misrepresentations that in many ways have taken place here. I've been here long enough to know that we have, or what we have, the good things we have in the kids and their families. In our response to the article, we stated that this is a place where, quote unquote, students from all backgrounds can learn, grow, and ready themselves for their next steps in harmony. And that we remain convinced that all districts should model themselves and their communities in a similar way. And again, this is a tough sell to those who have no connection to this district. This episode is upsetting, again, on so many levels. But as I think Mr. Graber pointed out, divisiveness at this point is going to help no one. Suffice it to say that the divisiveness at this point is really hard to avoid in light of the current national political climate, which is not a topic of conversation for today, but it does continue to rear its ugly head. What I can ask for, and there are certainly a number of people in this room for me to make the plea to at this point, is that we do come together as we take a lead role in changing the story, not just in Huntington, but for districts like us and for districts around this area. We always talk about downstate New York as a segregated place. That's not Huntington. That's why I'm here. That's why I chose to be here. That's why I choose to remain here. We need to come together to make a change here. And there are things that we can fix here. There are things that we can help fix in other places as well. In that light, this agenda item is obviously an attempt to prompt reflection and again initiate a dialogue that promotes the greatest degree of collaboration possible both within and beyond our community. And I would like people to recognize the efforts that have taken place basically because of the people that we've brought on board here to increase equity and cultural proficiency. This is going to be an ongoing task. It's going to be certainly a continuous challenge. But the only way that we can do this is with everybody's support here and the community behind us. And let's start the dialogue there.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Polanski. Okay. At this point, I know that there are different trustees at this table, including myself, who would like to speak to this topic. I'm going to open it up. Who would like to speak?
I'm gonna say something. What has occurred to Alex is very upsetting. We have all been touched by this story, and in my professional life, I've seen many inequities in the law. Few times do I see the outpouring of compassion like I've seen in Alex's case. I've gotten dozens and dozens of emails and phone calls and text messages from alum and from far out as San Francisco to Ohio to New Jersey to New York. And you're all a testament to the notion that neighbors can be neighborly. And I applaud everybody here for being here and for being the neighbors that I truly believe you are. But today I speak to you as a father, a member of this board, and a former ESL student of this very district. What happened to Alex was an unfortunate series of events that resulted in unintended consequences. I do not believe that anybody set out to harm him, Alex, purposefully. No one singular person is to blame here, not the SRO, and certainly not our high school principal. But the truth is that our procedures have failed Alex and possibly other students, and we must change that. We must revisit the suspensions of any students, whether high school students, bridge program students, middle school students, elementary school students, that have been adversely affected by such procedures. And in all cases where students were adversely affected, we must seek to expunge those suspensions. We must make a wrong right. But most importantly, we must apologize to this community and to the families that were affected by this policy or by this action. And as much as we may want today to review our formal relationship with the SRO, it is equally important for us to perform a comprehensive investigation of our district's actions. And if our district needs to create a policy, a new policy to prevent this from happening again, then we must do so. It breaks me to see our district in the crosshairs of such negative narrative. I know my district better than this.
It's been tough on all of us. You know what?
We have to find a solution, and denial is not an option. It is our primary job to protect every student and provide equal opportunities to education. Our schools need to feel safe and to be safe for all students and their parents. We cannot let this happen again. We need to be fully transparent as a district. We cannot, in one hand, say that we have no issues, and then in the other hand, suspend a child for the very thing that we're telling the community that we don't have any issues with. Our community deserves the truth. We must be better than this because I know that we are better than this. Thank you.
Well said. Anybody else down on that end like to speak? Oh, yeah, no.
Said I'm not following that.
Oh,
I'll wait
yeah,
a
I know
little
that's a
bit.
tough one to follow. I'm,
I'll just say, briefly that I appreciate everybody being here. I want to I'm looking at tonight's agenda item as an opportunity for me to listen to what the members of our community have to say, more than me saying things to you. I think it's important for us to listen, but I do think anyone who has come to meetings in the past several years, if you come on a monthly basis, you would hear that our 110% priority is every student in this building, in this district. We don't look at students in categories or color or, this is our family, this is our community. And I just think, anybody who knows us, it is our 110% priority to have our students, our staff, anybody who works for us feel happy here, safe here, and it's a work in progress. And if there's areas where we need to improve, I'm open to it and I'm open to the conversation. And I think there's always room for improvement. And hindsight's 20/20, but I'm here to listen and I'm here to help shape anything new as far as policy or practice.
thank you very much. I'm going to turn it to this end. Anybody have anything they specifically want to say? You don't have to, just that here's,
Just to reinforce some of what we've already been hearing, as a 20-year resident, 4 children through the district, 3 graduates and products of the bilingual program, the dual language program, 1 who couldn't because of her special needs, her significant special needs. I feel, we can only go based on our experience, but my children have seen everyone accepted. They've done incredibly well, and I'm proud to be a part of this community. And again, there's always work to be done, and that's why we're here, and it's wonderful to be a part of this. The other piece I just want to say, as a longtime educator, that we have to make some really tough calls sometimes. When we think a child is at risk of being harmed, of harming him or herself, or someone else, and those calls are hard to make, and you look for someone to help and intervene when necessary. And this, I think, just to reiterate what Xavier said, was just an unintended, very unfortunate consequence.
thank you very much.
Just quickly, my brother is a 1965 or 68 alumni. And for Christmas, or when we gathered for the family for Christmas, we got together, and the first thing he said to me is, "So, did you see the New York Times article?" And
what article?
I had seen it, and it made me sick to my stomach, to be honest with you. Still does. It's unfortunate what happened to this young man. The reality is, we as a district, though, have tried very hard to provide a community that is one, whether you're Latino, whether you're black, whether you're white. That picture up there on the wall represents Huntington as a community and its students. Every single student that passes through our door is of the top priority to the administration, as well as each each member of this board. I want to thank everyone tonight for coming out, for voicing your concerns, because we cannot come to a solution without everyone in this room working together to formulate one. And trust me, if you know this board and you know this community, we will overcome this issue and we will rise from it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tom.
I just add something. I just wanted to add, because I don't want to repeat everything that everybody already said, but to build on what Tom said, I think it's going to be really important going forward to keep the conversation going, to continue to hear from people in the respectful way that we just did for the last half hour, and I'm sure that we will. But there's also, I want to ask that everybody in the community listen when it is shown through this board and through our administration what will be done and what has already been done to resolve some of what's gone on. So I don't want everyone to think that the New York Times article happened and the administration said, oh, we didn't know that this was happening. Those of you who have seen presentations that have been made to this board by Mr. Cusack, by Mr. Polanski, by Ms. Acker, by everyone, know that steps have been taken. Just for an example, the young man that spoke last who asked about the classrooms, we know that last year we had a vigorous debate in this room about extending accelerated math to all students. And one of the main reasons that most of the people at this table ended up voting in favor of that initiative was because we wanted all the students in the classrooms accelerated together, to give the opportunity to to children, to students who were overlooked for those opportunities before, either because the teachers didn't notice them, they didn't know to speak up for themselves, they didn't know to ask for it, their families didn't know that they could do that math, whatever the reason was. And that's the sort, I think that was what he was implying, was to have more opportunities like that. And those, between the restorative justice initiatives that Mr. Cusack has come up with, and all of these things, we have been moving forward. And we have been moving forward since this one student that was featured in the article had this circumstance, but not because of it, but not in spite of it, but just around it.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Christine.
Okay, I'm ready now.
Okay, Bill.
I'm going to go back to the agenda item, talking about the school resource officer and the MOU that was mentioned. I think that all of these events kind of bring to people's consciousness the idea that perhaps we just need some more awareness and more recognized guidelines on who does what your roles and responsibilities are, because anyone who knows our school resource officer knows that he really only has the best interest of all the students in mind. He spends a ton of time trying to get to know them, as do, again, all of our staff that are working with this. Again, it was mentioned unintended consequences, and I think that maybe comes from information that whatever got to whomever it got. Those kind of things just need to be clearly delineated so that all people involved in the chain of practice are more aware. Because again, I think that the SRO is an asset not only to our community, but to all the communities that they operate in. And to condemn it for this, because of this unfortunate incident, would be a wrong thing. Someone mentioned taking short-term reactions to what really should be a longer-term solution.
I've referred to it actually as, and this is an old-fashioned phrase for some of you kids, it's not going to mean anything, but that unfortunately it's much akin to throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
I was thinking of that,
I know
but
it's
I
a
wasn't
terrible
gonna go there.
phrase, but in this case it really pertains, because I agree with you, Bill, and I didn't mean to jump on your
I'm done.
statement.
Thank you.
I think that if you want to take a 360-degree view of our SRO, there have been many kids and many students and many families who have been positively affected by the benefits of having the officer in the building. And I think, if you want to say that our buildings have relatively been quiet all along, well, I think you can attribute SRO in our building who's had a relationship with students and staff members and who knows our buildings and our programs well. Now, I am not saying that a terrible series of events didn't occur that involved that program, and that it's not worthwhile, and actually not just worthwhile, but a necessity at this point to re-examine how those officers are in our building. And truthfully, we need clarity and we need guidelines. And I've been on the board 8 years, and I will tell you that if we can't get those, I'm not comfortable having those officers in our building going forward. And I have a feeling many of my trustees feel a similar way, but I won't put words in their mouth. But I will say this, I am not willing to do away with that entire program until we have managed to try every possible effort to make it just a better program, because truthfully, I go to meetings every month with Mr. Polanski, Huntington Opportunity Resource Center meetings that are with the police and with some community members who are very active. And time again, when we show up to those meetings and we're talking about what's worked in our building, now this is pre this article that just recently came out, but I can tell you honestly that when we've talked about what's worked in our buildings, those offices, that's come up every single time as a program that we felt that was effective. So while I, again, will reiterate that unless we can lay it out in a clearly defined way about how this information gets handled and what is done with it, I also don't feel comfortable having an officer here. But if we can get that clarity and if we can get that defined, then not only are we doing a great thing for our school district, but frankly, we're probably doing a great thing for a lot of other school districts who haven't had to face this issue head on because their school district wasn't in the article, but who are going to have these same exact concerns in their buildings because we're not the only one with school resource officers. All of Huntington District, all the Huntington school districts have these resource officers in their buildings, and therefore, I kind of see us as being, unfortunately, given the mandate of having to figure this out for everybody else. And so we will, because this board, I don't know if you noticed, but several people on this board got emotional when they spoke about this issue tonight. That's not put on, that's not because they figured that might play out well with the media. That's genuine. We genuinely care about these kids. We genuinely care about you kids. We genuinely care about you families, and we genuinely care about our residents. And therefore, we are ready to do what we need to do to address this issue, but we are asking for your patience and your respect and your understanding that while that story that was in the article was heartbreaking, even if this much of it is true and the rest wasn't, it was heartbreaking. But there's another side to that story as well. And while we can't discuss it, because by law we can't discuss it, I will tell you that you have a team of people up here, board members and administrators alike, who are ready, willing, and able, and emotionally invested in seeing that we do right by every single student in our district, and that is what we intend to do. Thank you. And I'm finished.
Is it off? I'm going to just expand on that a drop because Jen referenced the people sitting at this table. I'm not sure the exact number that this room holds, but the hundreds of people that are here tonight, including employees and community members, I don't believe that there is a person in this room that doesn't have a vested interest in this school district and in this community. And we have I am doing everything I can to frame this in my head as an opportunity. And there are people I know out there who I've spoken to already who I know are willing to help. I'm going to take one hat off and put another hat on. I sit on the executive board of the Suffolk County Schools Superintendents Association. One thing that came out of our summer retreat meetings this summer, meetings throughout the summer, had to do with what we can do to keep our kids across Suffolk County. There are 70-something districts in Suffolk County. What we can do to keep every child, regardless of where they're coming from, regardless of their socioeconomic status, what can we do to keep them safe? And a lot of this, full disclosure, comes out of the unfortunate incidents that have taken place in Parkland and the like. And that is an ongoing concern. We can't ignore the fact, for those that know what Maslow's hierarchy is, if we can't keep our students safe and secure, the rest of it doesn't matter. We're doing some terrific things. We can talk about robotics till I can talk about robotics till I'm blue in the face. Love it, but if we can't keep kids safe and secure, that doesn't matter as much. One of the things that came out of our meetings this summer was a plan, and it hasn't come to fruition yet. And I have been taking as active a role as possible, and I know my colleagues have as well, in communicating. The SRO program has been something that's been discussed at multiple levels. Obviously, we're looking for something that is a little different than maybe what other counties are looking for, but I can tell you that what we came up with this summer that was important to us, and I was integrally involved in that, was cooperatively developing a roles and responsibilities statement for school resource officers assigned to school districts throughout the county. Also periodically participating in, as often as needed, I should say, training and educational activities for SROs. We have formal educational training. Their training is a little bit different. For those that don't, and I'm assuming that everybody in this room knows how a school resource officer operates, they are not school district employees. They are hired by the Suffolk County Police Department and trained in their way to access schools for, I'll say, safety-related purposes and educational purposes as well. But we've got to coordinate the establishment of protocols for SROs communicating with school districts. And multiple people have said this already. Those things need to be in place to ensure that nothing like this happens here, nothing like this happens anywhere. And that may be a tall order, but I'm not willing to compromise what this district can do for kids for anything. This has to be a part of that, and again, I'm going to be part of these ongoing conversations, and at this point, I'm going to reach out to my colleagues here and those in the audience who are interested. And I know, for those that don't know me, and many of you do, my door doesn't close. I'm pretty much here 24/7, and if there is a concern, I don't want it to wait till after a media portrayal comes out for people to step up and wish they would have said something 2 months ago. I can't promise the world. I can't promise I can do everything everybody asks for, but I think those who know me well, those who know the people at this table, those who know the high school administration know that we're here to listen, that we're here to make this community the best place possible. I want everybody to want to move to Huntington because of our community, because of what we have here, because what we have here, people are different. That's what it's all about. We're unique in that regard. I want to maintain it. We want to maintain it. And we need your help in making sure people understand what we can do together and what we have to offer. How else to put it?
All right. With that, we're not taking any action tonight. We were having a discussion and obviously inviting comments at our first and second public commentary. Does anybody have anything else they want to add before we move on from this, though?
Does anybody have an issue with, I have spoken to our second precinct inspector. I have not reached out beyond my association and him. I can speak to my colleagues, my association colleagues, and look to reach out beyond the second precinct and possibly to the commanding office out in Yaphank.
If we're going to solve this problem, we might as well solve it big. That's what I think.
Continue to be an ongoing dialogue.
Well, I think, I do have some documents that I'd like to share just as discussion points moving forward, and I think that's a starting point. This is going to have to be a two-way street, and I'm not talking just about Huntington. I'm talking about any school district that gets involved in a school resource officer program. Like I said, 70-something districts. There are many school resource officers throughout this county, and I do not believe that there are any such roles and responsibility statements in place.
All right.
It's something we can take a lead role with, and
I think we need to.
Yep.
Yes, for some reason, I don't hear your mics working.
Can you turn them up a little, Chris?
Maybe pull it a little
think you're
closer. Use batteries, or not batteries, yeah.
Do you think that the SRO agreement would be just specific to Huntington High School, Huntington District, Huntington District, the entire township of Huntington, or all of Suffolk County? I mean, are we gonna look for a solution for Suffolk County, or are we gonna look for a solution for Huntington, the school district?
I think maybe the discussion of a template for as a start point would make sense, but I also believe that every district is different, and there
Yes.
may have to be pieces involved that are
I agree.
attached to each district specifically. So, while there are certain components, I don't think anybody in this room or anybody in any district would argue that they should be in such a document, but I also believe that, we're Huntington, and we have things that may be different than our left and right districts. So it's,
I think it'll be a culmination of not just, as you're speaking to your colleagues who are also going to want to formulate their own plan.
Of course.
That there is going to be, kind of, a
starting point.
Absolutely.
And
I don't want to speak with any sense of I'm sure of this, but I believe Nassau County has some agreements like this in place. I do not know which districts have them or don't. I do understand that it took a lengthy period of time to come to a final copy or draft of such an agreement. We can want what we want, but then there's another side to this that has to come to the table and agree to it as well, and that's where our advocacy has to be an important component of the process.
Is there anything that we can do from our perspective, from our side of the table, to limit the information from going anywhere without an agreement? In other words, I'm saying, if something happens in the school, somebody has to decide to share it with you, or is it just by the nature of an email?
Well, listen, I'm not going to say yes or no, but if, all I can state there is a school resource officer is not an employee of the school district. And listen, I know the gentleman that has been here for 15 plus years. I don't think he would go out of his way to intentionally harm any child. He's done. I understand that, but I also know that this is an employee of the Suffolk County Police Department and not the school district. So to put some of the concerns, I'm not saying anything wrong would happen moving forward, but to put some of those concerns at rest, this is the thrust of what we discussed this summer moving forward in terms of, you know, what we'd ask for to make this program as comfortable as possible for students and staff in a diverse community. I don't want to minimize the good that's been done. These are good people, but they are not working in the same context as every employee in the school district.
And to be honest, I ran for this seat last time we had an election, right? And we had to meet the candidates, every single candidate that was vying for a position in South Huntington and Huntington at our joint Meet the Candidates night, talk about the school resource officers.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
And this is not to say that we don't want more of them, but we want them in a situation where we know that it's going to benefit the community in all regards. And I'm not saying that this gentleman has not done so much good, because he has set the standard for the position in many ways. He has been with it longer than most, but I think there are concerns here that have to be addressed.
Absolutely. All right, thank you very much. I guess that is going to move us to our next item for discussion and action, which is the 2019-2020 district calendar. Should I just call for a motion in a second?
Kathy will put it up on the screen.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So we're going to take a look at that. If people, we're going to give you, actually everybody about a minute to get up and out if you want to leave at this point. And that way it won't be disruptive while we do this next portion. You too. I know. What's that? What was that? No, I thought you said-
Kathy, if I need to move, just let me know.
What? Nobody wants to see the calendar? Thank you. Yeah, actually, much better than I thought. Yeah, no, I appreciate everybody being adults. Yep, the adults in the room. That's what we needed. By the way, Jamie and I are convinced you two are related. No, I'm not kidding. I'm convinced you two are related. I think his great-grandfather was one of like 5 boys. And I just think it's the funniest. And Hebert, Quebec, Maine. I mean, you know, it's all right there. Yeah, no, that's exactly what they did. That's just right. It's really funny too. We heard like there is almost like royalty over. I don't know if Jamie just told me that, so I want to marry him now. Anyway, all right. It is interesting. Do it, do it. Yeah, and I'll show it to him. Because how they are. They're working.
Testing? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Back now.
Hello?
Back now.
Mine's working.
Am I on? Yeah, there you go. Good.
I'm really loud though, so I'm
Wait.
going to go without it. Is it?
Mine's
Is
on.
it? Yes, it is.
Okay.
All right. For everybody that is going to stay and join us, if you could find a seat,
on?
and I'm going to ask.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Could somebody at the back of the room maybe close the doors because I think it's going to be loud out in our lobby. Or I'll do it. We're going to do the calendar now, though. Everybody pay attention.
Thank you.
You got it. You got it.
I thought you were kidding. You were.
I can't. Glenn, Chris, can you close the doors in the back? Or not?
He has to move people first.
There we go. Thank you.
Should I move?
Is this shining on my head?
No, you're just
Okay.
a little bit, actually.
All right, so you'll. Okay. Very briefly. We're good. All right. It is that time of year where we're looking to adopt the 2019-2020 school calendar. Dr. Acker has a PDF of it on the screen here, and she's going to shift it a little bit as we discuss. I'm just going to provide some of the highlights, and this will allow, we will get this home with the kids very shortly. It should allow you to start planning your vacations and whatever else you'll plan for 1920. It is a fairly simple calendar. Just a couple of highlights here. It does give us a little bit more continuity at the beginning of the school year. September is typically a month that's cracked into a number of pieces. It is not the case in September 2019. October picks that up a little bit with Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Columbus Day. November, it's, slow me down if you need to, Kathy. November, Thursday and Friday off. I know there was a time several years back when the Wednesday was given as a holiday. We have not done that in this calendar. And December and January would involve a week and 3 days with a return on Thursday, January 2nd. February is straightforward from the 17th to the 21st. April 9th to April 17th is spring recess. The big change in this calendar is the way we've treated the days around Memorial Day. Obviously, the holiday itself is a school closure. The 22nd and 26th are listed as school days, but those would both be days that would be open to reclaiming as vacation days. They start as school days if we don't need to consume the days for snow or other closures during the year. Those days would become vacation days. So that would extend Memorial Day weekend from the 22nd, that's a Friday, through Tuesday, the 26th. While that might sound exciting to my young friends in the front, that is weather permitting, okay? Just an FYI for the board, this does require board adoption. If there are any questions.
The 10th is Good Friday, I'm assuming, April 10th, but we get the 9th as well?
Yes, the way this
In
calendar.
April, wow, that's a big April break. All right, just more point of that. Don't you start with me. Does anybody have any questions or comments about our calendar? Okay, then it is upon recommendation from the Superintendent of Schools that the Board of Education adopt the attached calendar for the 2019 through 2020 school year. Can I get a motion? Okay, I've got Christine and a second is Linda. Any questions or comments before we vote? All in favor? That's everybody. Thank you.
And again, that will be sent home with students with a letter from me very shortly.
Okay, I think that brings us to Ms. McCoy.
It is upon recommendation from the Superintendent of Schools that the Board of Education approve CSE, CPSE submissions as delineated.
Okay, we got those. Can I get a motion? Bill, and a second from Barry. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Thank you very much, Ms. McCoy. We're up to personnel, and that's back to you, Mr. Polanski.
All right, I'm asking the board for approval of personnel items on schedules 3, 4, 5, 8, 10, 11, 13, 15, 16, and 22.
Very good. All right, can I get a motion? That is Christine, and a second. Tom, any questions, comments?
I'm going to abstain.
Oh, and one abstention, okay. So all in favor? And one abstention.
Well, do you want me to pull that off?
Would you
So-
rather, or
Sure.
would you rather do it that way?
Okay, so let me, hang on.
Okay, so we're gonna back it up a minute.
I'm going to make a motion to amend the motion.
Okay. That's all I have to do?
Call
Okay.
for an amendment of the motion.
I'll make a motion to amend.
Thank you, Christine, in a second.
Right, he's gonna
Tom.
tell us in a second.
I thought you had to be specific about what we were amending.
He's gonna tell us now.
Okay, so we've got the motion and the second, all in favor? Okay, we have
Okay, so-
amended the motion.
So the motion is now, and why am I not finding what I'm looking for here? Is that
Maybe
schedule,
Linda knows?
is that schedule 8?
Which one, Linda, do you know which one you were abstaining from specifically?
There was no 7, 8?
No, 13 probably, is it
Mm.
13?
It is, yeah, 8.
Okay, so I'm asking for approval of personnel items on schedules 3, 4, 5, 10, 11, 13, 15, 16, and 22.
Okay, so let's do this again. I need a motion for those just listed. Barry, and a second is Tom. All in favor? And that is everybody. And now we'll go back
And
to,
now I'm asking for approval of personnel items on schedule 8.
okay, can I get a motion? Is Christine, and a second is Barry, and all in favor? And that is all of us except for Linda, one abstains. Okay, very good. Thank you. I think that brings us to Dr. Edgar.
Okay, it is upon recommendation from the Superintendent of Schools that the Board of Education approve items J through P on this evening's business agenda.
What's the matter?
Nothing.
Did we move too fast?
No.
Okay, so I am looking for a motion. Can I get a motion, please? Motion, Tom, in a second. I got a second, is Xavier. Comments, questions? No, then all in favor? Great. Barry, we had a couple donations. You want to make those announcements?
Sure, I'd be happy to. We have a donation of $1,000 from Mr. Michael Chifo.
Clap after.
It was for, to purchase art supplies for Flower Hill Primary School, and we are much appreciative of that, and
That's
Mr.
very nice.
Chifo.
Okay.
And then we also just accepted a donation from Ms. Joan Coover, thank you. I knew that.
For the scholarship.
But I'm just getting to my laptop is slow, so I have to see how much.
Alan
For,
Hoover.
right, for the, but I didn't know the amount. $2,000 to be credited to the Alan Coover Fencing Scholarship Fund at Huntington High School. Again, Alan Coover was a beloved teacher at Huntington and has a scholarship fund in his name, and we much appreciate that.
Very nice, thank you. Okay, and that actually brings us back around to our second public commentary section. I'm going to remind you again that you need to be a resident, student, or staff member of the district. And I'm also going to remind you, so that I don't end up disappointing anybody, that this second section is also 30 minutes, and that you each have 3 minutes to speak. I don't know if we're going to get to the people at the back, so let's get started and we'll see how we do. Can I have you do the timing again for me again, and Jim?
I
Okay,
got the 30 minutes.
very good, thank you. Here we go.
Good evening, Board of Education members and members of the Huntington community. My name is Steve Ye. I'm a graduate of Huntington's class of 2017. We are a group of recent graduates who would like to discuss the content of the PBS Frontline documentary that was released last February and the New York Times article that came out on the 27th of December. The issue is very clear. Our classmates are being accused of participating in gang activity based on evidence that does not prove their involvement beyond reasonable doubt, and ultimately they are detained or deported by ICE. This is an emotional issue, and it hurts us all. It hurts me that in my graduation speech in 2017, I talked about our bright futures ahead, while the futures of those who are accused had already been diminished. Our school failed to protect our classmates. However, we must remain constructive. Our goal is to change problematic policies rather than merely to complain. Our classmates deserve more than a deep regret from the school, but they also deserve more than reactionaries from us. Let me repeat myself. Our goal is to change the policies that are failing to protect our classmates. Our group of alumni has focused on changing school policies and processes. Aiden and Zach will be passing out letters addressed to the Board of Education and the high school administration. Aiden will speak on how weak the nature of the evidence was. Savannah, the young lady in the right side of that picture, she will share a friend's perspective on the issue. Zach will discuss our recommendations for items in the Memorandum of Understanding. Tanya will offer testimony from a friend on her experience at Huntington High. Rachel will explain why we need a support system protocol for our classmates who are accused. And lastly, Dawson will talk about the need for transparency. We demand that these items be considered immediately so that this discussion can continue to involve our whole community. This affects our students, parents, faculty, and administration. Members of our group, some of who could not be here today, will be following up with you all at the February Board of Education meeting. Thank you for your time.
My name is Aiden Forbes, and I am a member of Huntington High School's class of 2018. And I say that with pride, despite the fact that my high school is now at the center of a national debate on gang violence. I say it with pride because sharing that building with such a diverse student body is what enables me today to form meaningful relationships with people from a wide variety of backgrounds. Though I believe that the high school's administration has historically done a remarkable job supporting its uniquely diverse student body, I believe that the series of events detailed in the New York Times article illustrates what can only be described as a complete failure in this department. The student in the article was suspended for 3 days on the most cursory of evidence. He had drawn the number 504 on a school calculator, wore blue sneakers, and drew the name of his Honduran hometown and the devil with horns. He was charged with possessing gang paraphernalia and defacing school property with gang signs, but his actions did not reflect membership in a violent street gang. The administration admitted as such. When it comes to gang association, however, the lines are blurred. I have no doubt that MS-13 poses a real threat. It was not so long ago that communism posed a threat to the safety of our nation. However, McCarthyism taught us then what overzealous prosecution leads to. It quickly becomes persecution of people with the most tangential of connections. And that is precisely what happened here. Therefore, our group is here today imploring the administration to change its suspension policies to require that there be more evidence of gang association before a student is suspended. The student's suspension led to a chain of events resulting in his detention and ultimate deportation. Given what is at stake, it is not too much to ask for an investigation into a student's character before he is suspended from school and before his activities are reported to the school resource officer. If the student's teachers have been spoken to, or he was afforded the opportunity to speak to a school counselor, it would have been clear that he was not the type of person to associate with the gang, and none of this would have happened.
Just so you know, you have 30 seconds left.
Everyone recognizes that the school has an obligation to keep its students safe. But in our fervor to root out danger, we must not succumb to hysteria. The administration must be mindful of the impact its actions have on people's lives, the impact its actions have on families in our community, a community I'm still proud to call my own. Keep.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Savannah Richardson. I'm part of the class of 2016, and yes, that is me in that poster. That is me. Yeah, that was taken about 12 years ago. I am 21 now. I was about 8 years old. I just want to say, before I say my piece, that just because that photo exists doesn't mean that the way we approach diversity at Huntington is perfect. So I'm just going to be saying a piece about a fellow 2016 graduate who would like to remain anonymous. I was born and raised in this town, was a member of the dual language program, and now attend one of the best colleges in the country. But this was my privilege. I was granted a life that gave me a chance to do all of these things because of my father, an immigrant from Mexico, was given the chance at a better life here in the United States. The men, women, and children that come to our country deserve the same opportunities that were given to me. They are afraid, they are desperate, they are in need of our help. Huntington High School was supposed to provide a safe space for every single student that walked through these front doors, but it failed the students that needed it the most. For the 4 years I spent at Huntington, I believed our school resource officer was placed there to protect us. The students were never made aware that information received by the SRO would end up in the hands of ICE. That betrayal that these students feel is unparalleled. My heart breaks for those affected by the inappropriate steps taken by the school administration, but I have hope. We have an important opportunity to take action and ensure the protection of every single person at Huntington High School, to provide the same opportunities, to give them a chance to succeed. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Zach McGinnis and I am a graduate of the Huntington High School class of 2018. I am here to outline our demands for items to be included in the Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, that will best protect students in our schools as well as facilitate the best learning experience possible. This ensures that both parties, school resource officers, SROs, and the school district are held accountable for what is mutually agreed upon. Our list of demands are not exhaustive. Our first recommendation outlines relevant training for SROs. SROs should be required to partake in trainings in the following areas: cultural competency, special support for disabled students, and restorative justice practices. This should ensure that observations made are not prejudiced by the student's race and/or sexual orientation, as this is the information that is not protected according to the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act of 1974, also known as FERPA. Appropriate responses to student behavior from SROs and school administrators must also be outlined in the MOU. The role the SRO plays in the school must clearly be delineated. Student misbehavior should be first addressed by school officials, and incidences in which SROs should intervene must be clearly defined. Our next suggestion for the MOU outlines how to best protect student privacy. Under the before-mentioned FERPA, student records should not be released to law enforcement without a court order or consent of the student's parents. The school must clearly define the boundaries to which information is shared by the SRO with third parties, including ICE. The school itself must not share student information with third parties, including ICE. We believe this will best protect the privacy of our classmates. Accountability and transparency between SROs and school administrators is a key aspect for the MOU. SROs should provide monthly written reports to the school administration and the Board of Education on all activities. Any policy changes with respect to the MOU must be reported to the Board of Education and discussed as agenda items at Board of Education meetings. Lastly, we demand the finalized MOU be published on the school website, discussed at subsequent board meetings, and generally broadcasted to our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Tanya Uloa, and I'm a member of the graduating class of 2017. The following statement is not a personal one, but from a member of the class of 2013 who has chosen to remain anonymous. This former student would like to begin with her testimony with saying that she and her siblings are all Huntington High School alumni, years ranging from 2012 to 2017. They have all stated that they have felt that they have never had the same resources to seek help compared to other students. For her personally, she never felt that the school had been a positive environment. Her and her friends would often feel alone. She would have felt this once she had learned that she had been put into a program, which she remembers by the name of the Transition Program, which she states that has been since canceled. She recalls being told that it was a second chance at her academics. Meanwhile, it was her believing that she was a freshman when really taking 8th grade introductory courses for a year while still at the high school. Being taught by the same high school teachers and seeing only African American and Hispanic students in her classroom, her and her friends felt this had wasted their first year at the high school. Most of their classes had been taught in the basement of the school, and she recalls being told at some point by one of the teachers that it was a privilege to have her single class be taught on the upstairs floor. In order to graduate with her class, she had to attend night school, and at her age at the time, she felt that it was the most stressful thing that she could have faced. Her parents were never notified of such program that their daughter was placed in, and she was too afraid to tell them herself. Once telling her parents that there was not much else to do, but the only thing that they could do was encourage her to continue. This alumni wants there to be change. The program she was placed in has since been canceled, but she does not want other students facing what she had to do. She wishes for transparency between the school and the families, and some sort of records to be available to show what is going on at the school and for the staff to actually be more inclusive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Rachel Roday, and I'm a Huntington graduate of the class of 2017. A support system protocol is essential to the students of the Huntington community, but specifically those who have faced accusations that may threaten their legal status within the country. In the circumstance of detainment, students should be allowed the same support system from the school as when they were active students. So we ask, why were teachers not allowed to provide letters of support for students who found themselves in a court of law? Letters of support from the faculty are beyond important, as the faculty can speak to the students' strengths and character. Our school district allows students to ask for letters of recommendation for college and internship applications, but not when their deportation from the country is at stake. It should be an objective for the school district to provide the necessary resources and information to all students and family members, but specifically those of immigrant status. These resources can be made available and must be made available in Spanish through the use of Spanish language services. Accused students should be referred to in-school counselors, deans, and social workers for help and guidance before escalating the situation to SRO involvement. Additionally, the school district should make known to all students the local organizations that cater to religious, ethnic minority, disability, and LGBTQ groups, as well as create safe spaces within the school for these groups. The school needs to work with the counselors and deans already available within the district, as well as these advocacy groups that serve as out-of-school support systems. In this way, all students of the Huntington School District will be more knowledgeable, better protected, and therefore thrive in a safer and more accepting environment. Students will have the ability to discuss, appeal, and seek help from the school and community against discrimination and accusations should they be made. We ask you to recognize that in the case presented in the New York Times article, our high school could have served as a better support system for our classmates, and that it must strive to do better in the future. On a personal note, I'd like to say that the adults in this room can speak to the quality of the Huntington administration and its programs, but until you are a student walking through the halls, you cannot see the inherent bias that is present in all of its programs. We must do better as a community to serve the diversity of our students.
You know what, I just want to stop here just for a second and say that we have about, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 more people online. My suggestion is we let everybody that's online finish. We're going to run out before you all finish, and this is why I'm stopping us right now. I don't want to have to stop in the middle and say that, only the last 3 people aren't going to get to speak, or the last 2 people. So what I'd like to do is at this point just say that this is who we have online, and we're going to go through these last speakers. Is that okay with everyone? Very good. Yep. All right, let's go.
My name is Dawson Wallace, and I'll be the last speaker for the group that previously went. Transparency is the gatekeeper which prevents any controversial policies from staying in the dark. Evidently, members of the Huntington community and surrounding communities are shocked in light of recent events. This is a direct result of concealed and unclear policy. Students and faculty especially should be granted the right to know the provisions of school policy for the same reasons we as Americans are granted the ability to know our fundamental rights under the Constitution of the United States. The faculty has the right to understand school policy as their input is fundamental to accusations against students. Students have a right to understand school policy as they are the ones being accused. We ask that these policies are easily accessible to our community. This is a key component of administration accountability. The transparency also extends to the response from the administration. When these issues are brought up in the New York Times article and the PBS documentary from last year, the simple apology from the school highlights the administration's apathy and simultaneously reveals the disconnect between the school and our community. Why wasn't there any information disclosed by the school for the 10 months between the release of the PBS documentary and the New York Times article on this issue or its policies? At the start of school in 2017, Governor Cuomo had unexpectedly announced that state troopers would be stationed at our high school. The school administration was outraged that there was no prior transparency in the information disseminated to them by the state. On the current issue, we are likewise angered by the lack of transparency, but between that of the school administration and our community. All the points brought up by our group are outlined in the letter.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jorge Cisneros. I remember last Saturday reading the article. I remember reading it at 11 p.m. My friend sent it to me. And while I was reading it, I was literally crying. I was shaking. And I thought to myself, and I was thinking, this is not my community. This is not my school. I came to this country 5 years ago without speaking any word of English. I came here with a purpose, and that purpose is my American dream. When I came to this community, I felt welcomed by everyone around me. When I was reading the article, I was shaking, as I said, because I thought to myself, what if I was that person in the article? I'm a student that I get 90 A+ at school, and I was thinking to myself, what about if I was that person? What about if I was that person that was reported to that country and be in danger again? Because we know that our countries are in danger. My country, El Salvador, is in danger. And I know that for a reason, because I came 5 years ago, and I came to live with my mom, and because our countries are in so much danger. When I was reading the article, I put myself as the character inside the article. And while I was reading, I was thinking, if I was that person, I felt that my American dream that I have, that article took part of my American dream. It took part of that American dream that I have, because I know that this is not the community that we are. I know this community is better than that, and when I came to this community, I felt welcome, and I feel that I was born here, and I love every single one of you. I can say that from my heart.
I'm just going to let you know, I hate to do this, you have 30 seconds left.
We are our community, and we are all equal in the eyes of God. And viewing a person different is not the right answer for me and for my community, because I know we are better than that. And the most important, we're all a family, and we are all made from immigrants. And we all have to remember one thing, and we also have to be safe, protect my classmates, because the ones that I see in the hallways, we don't know them. We are the ones that know them, because I see them every day in the hallways. And remember one thing, no matter what color, what race, whatever we are, what color, we are the future of this country. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jacob Fuller. I graduated class of 2017. I see here a strong community that supports diversity and equality among its citizens and its students. Huntington has always been that way, and I hope it continues to be that in the future. However, recent events have demonstrated that there still is work to be done. From information gathered from the Times article, the district's response, the PBS documentary, as well as the follow-up interview with Newsday, it is clear that Huntington schools still have a ways to go in order to address potentially harmful discrimination within the school. Huntington as a town is a segregated community, but one of its greatest aspects is that its schools are not. In fairness, the district has clearly made great strides in achieving some level of diversity within the schools. However, it would be foolish to assume that this would automatically mean that Huntington schools are a safe place for minority students. I've heard many testimonials from alumni and current students who have had terrible experiences with racial profiling and open harassment by the student resource officer and staff. The fact that many of the administration have come forward tonight, seemingly to have never heard of events like this, says a lot about the level of communication present within the administration. And if the steps have been taken, clearly the administration has poorly communicated that. So to the school board, I would like to encourage the following changes, some of which were present in the co-authored letter that I worked with the alumni group who has just spoken.
Just so you know, you have 1 minute.
Okay. I demand the widespread adoption of mandatory anti-bias training for all staff and administrators in regards to the cultural differences among students. In addition, I would personally like to call for greater accountability for those responsible in the events that have transpired and future events, and actual repercussions for those who have demonstrated complete inaction and passivity in events such as this. There needs to be a clear definition in the student code of conduct on what exactly constitutes gang-related paraphernalia, as the current definition merely suggests that students refer to local law enforcement agencies' definitions on it. I hope that this does not happen again, and this cannot be allowed to happen again, and I hope the board understands that this has that their actions have a tangible impact on matters such as this.
Thank you. Your name?
Hi, my name is Landry Rivas Argueta. I'm here. I didn't prepare anything for this, but I just wanted to share my testimony and my feelings about the article. When I was reading the article, it kind of got me disgusted. It made me feel very, very uncomfortable. I'm not surprised. Me being a Latino in Huntington, it's very difficult. I just want to ask all the Latinos, parents, students, alumni, if they could stand up. I'm here to voice for all my community, my Latinos. Unfortunately, we have no representation in the school district. I've never seen, very rarely, anything that a Hispanic has done good has been represented on the websites. There's no translations on the websites. There's no translation at these meetings. And I'm here with Marlon. I've been working closely with Alex's family. This is Alex's brother. We actually are, I'm asking politely if me and my friends made a GoFundMe. If anyone would like to collaborate to help the family because of everything that has happened and obviously was mentioned in the New York Times article. I'm just very, very upset because I know what it is to be a Latino in Huntington, and unfortunately, it's not welcoming. It's not safe. It doesn't feel at home anymore. And I say it with the bottom of my heart. It's very hard to be a Latino here, and we need more representation. I'm not here to point fingers. I'm not here to say that you guys were wrong, that anyone was wrong, but something has to change. I'm sorry, this is not going to cut it. I'm sorry, apologies are not going to cut it. We need a change, and we need it now, because something doesn't change. Someone's going to get hurt. Someone can die. Alex is living in a little box in Honduras, away from no family, doesn't go to school, doesn't work. His parents are sending him $250 a week just so he can survive out there by himself.
Sorry, you have 30 seconds.
Yes.
I don't mean to cut you off.
So, just that being said, this stuff has to stop. It's very disfortunate, and we need a change. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Sabrina Palacios. I graduated with Huntington's class of 2016. I'd like to say that in a time when it would be easy to make this a larger political issue and even potentially rightfully so, that is not the issue at hand. As a community, we must strive for fair treatment for all and have that be our standard. This includes our schools. A Huntington education has been an experience close to the hearts of individuals from all walks of life. We've heard that today. And as a community, we should expect nothing more than to provide this for all of our students. No one should be afraid to enter a setting that others can love so dearly. And it is on us to make sure that no other student, regardless of where they come from, is unfairly ripped away from a place that should be considered a second home. I considered it a second home, and everyone else should be able to as well. One idea that should carry weight in this room today is the idea of community. And to understand this idea, we must all be granted the equal opportunity to find happiness and help every individual achieve their goals of happiness and understanding in a community. That is Huntington. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Dave Saginaw. I'm a resident of the community since 1997. I have two children that have gone through 13 years of schooling in Huntington School District. Just like to say a few words about going forward. Extemporaneous comments, forgive me for the lack of preparation, but I was compelled to come up the second time. I am of a belief that the board, the administration, is committed, impassioned, and sincere about moving forward and resolving this problem so, as we heard, it would never happen again. My recommendation in one way is to make yourselves perfectly clear where you stand. Is this a sanctuary or is it not? We want to know, and the community wants to know, the country wants to know. Make it clear. Number two, we live in an environment today, unfortunately, where there are agents in the community, in the country, that do not represent the values that we've talked about here tonight and the values that are held by this school district, administration, and board. We need to be increasingly vigilant to not let our guard down and allow things to happen on our watch that can be prevented by paying attention, more attention than we've had to pay in the past. Number three, I don't accept the explanation that it's a series of unfortunate events. Every event is explainable and is somebody's responsibility. The way to solve this in my experience, the way to get at the bottom of these problems is transparently and openly and not vindictively. Ask each and every one of everybody who had a hand in this event happening. Ask yourself why. And when you come to the answer in terms of the reason why, ask why that reason happened. And ask again until you come back to the very beginning. Only then will we be able to resolve and fix what happened and prevent it from happening again. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sandy Saginaw, and I have two kids that have gone through the district. My concerns are a little bit more immediate as our discussion has gone on tonight. Right now, most of the kids, or some of the kids in our community, will not trust an SRO in our school. So what is happening immediately to this program? What is happening to make sure that tomorrow something else doesn't happen like this? Because right now it sounds like this agreement is going to take a while to get through. So are there things that the board has discussed to put in place that is going to prevent this from happening next week? As unfortunate as it was that some of the information was inaccurate in the Times article, I'm glad it came out because I kind of feel that if that wasn't put out there, how would we have known? Could more kids have been taken away without our knowledge? At least now we can do something about it. I know people have been pained by this and you've had to answer a lot of questions, but now is the time, like now, to make sure this doesn't happen next week. So I'm asking you to look at the SRO, look at what he does. Perhaps it needs to be a different kind of person. Perhaps it needs to be no person. But we need to look at all that. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one more speaker, and then I do think that Mr. Plansky was just going to have a few remarks to make addressing some of the things that have been said here. So we're going to have our final speaker. Thank you very much for your patience.
Hi, thanks. I'm a 20-year resident of Huntington. 2 kids went through the schools here.
I'm sorry, what's your name?
My name is Danny Klein.
Thank
I've lived
you.
here 20 years. 2 of my kids went through the whole school system.
Great, thank you.
And I want to start by saying thank you to all of you for, I know you put in a lot of time being on the board. I appreciate it. I know there are a lot of nights you're here and helping the town, so I do appreciate it. And my comments, I sympathize with most of the speakers, but I understand that it's certainly not something any of you want. But what is, to me, the crux of the matter, of course, we need to protect our children from gangs. We also need to protect them from powerful government forces that have essentially unchecked power to win their lives without due process. There's an enormous problem here with by default, you have a policy of allowing information about minor school offenses, and I'll say minor being nonviolent. I don't believe, at least from the information I have, there's no information this gentleman, Alex, was ever violent. That's the information I have. But minor nonviolent offenses, to me, have no permission or no purpose being communicated outside the school district to law enforcement authorities, and especially to federal law enforcement authorities. And it seems to me that what's very scary is also there's 2 possibilities. Is it only information about Hispanic students being transmitted to ICE? That's terrifying. Or is it actually information about all our students?
Just so you know, you have 1 minute.
Okay. Equally terrifying is information about all our students being transmitted to any government law enforcement agency. If someone smelled pot on my kid's breath 10 years ago, is that an FBI file someplace? I think the board needs to be very clear that that kind of information has no business leaving the school. And that's important to me.
All right, that is going to end our second public commentary section. And again, I want to thank everybody for the respectful and you know, really helpful and productive comments that you brought to the mic. And I have to say shout out to our students because they are impressive. Well done, students. Honestly, I may not be happy or agree with every single thing you say, but I am certainly on board for the way you delivered it. Well done. Okay, Mr. Plansky, to you.
Just a few items, and I have notes all over the place here, so I'm going to do the best I can to coordinate them like things in ducks in a row here, and they're not. A couple of individuals who just spoke alluded to the political climate really nationwide, and you know, I just want to reinforce and reiterate that while this is a national problem, we have control much more control over what we can do to address the problem locally. I believe Sabrina and one other had mentioned that, and that's where our commitment lies. I do want to acknowledge, and I'm writing names down here, Steve, Eaton, Savannah,
I've got 'em all, too.
Zach, Tanya, Rachel, Dawson, Jorge. That was my breaking point right there. Jacob, Landry, Sabrina, and the Saginaws, and Mr. Klein. First of all, I have had the privilege of getting to know many of these young people over here, and I can say, among others, this is the future of our country. And I can honestly say that although we can debate certain points, I think we as a community could not be prouder of your stepping up, because you don't have to do this. So thank you for that.
100%. Well done. I'll stand.
And Jorge, when I said breaking point, I meant that in the most positive light possible, just to clarify that. I do want to just mention a couple of things, just to share efforts that have been made, and obviously we're committed to doing everything we can and in the most transparent manner possible. But a lot of work has been done at the high school over the past 2 years at the hands of the current administration and beyond on restorative practices. It's been a tough go, because this has the restorative practices. I don't know if everybody's familiar with the term. There was a presentation done a couple of months ago, and it's a work in progress. And each year, the idea is, listen, I'll speak generically to my feelings on suspension in general. It doesn't really serve a purpose, because if a child is out of school when something goes wrong, there's only an opportunity, and I'm not going to cite a specific offense, but they go home and they can just do the same thing that they were suspended for times 10, and why not? There's nothing more to be held accountable in some of those cases. So suspension does not serve the purpose, and we recognize that. That's where the restorative practices come in. Other ways where the punishment is more aligned with the crime, and restoratively, a student gets to understand that this was not the right way to go, where they can right a wrong in the most constructive, service-oriented manner possible. And that has been a major thrust at that building, and I think it needs to go further in the district. And that's a commitment that we're making district-wide. So just to throw that out there is one thing that you can sink your teeth into. Also, with respect to the MOU content or the document or roles and responsibilities content, it's going to take some time to get what we'd like for this district in place. The question came up before whether or not that such a document would be for every Suffolk County district or catered to specific districts, and I think the answer before was apparent. But please understand that it's going to take some time to run this. It's got to be something that's done. It's a negotiation, and it has to be done in the right manner. And I'll get to the thought on what we do in the interim. Somebody had mentioned, somebody in the past, about that transition program back in 2013. I can tell you, and I really don't want to speak for myself here, but one of the things that I've done every summer since I've been here is invite rising seniors to have a conversation with me. And that conversation between myself and student and or parents, I try to make that as safe a conversation as possible, where if they want to bring something up that they didn't really experience in a positive light, that it may be something we can fix right away, or it may be something that's going to require something more systemic. But that transition program disappeared very quickly around that 2013 time, because students like you had pointed out that it wasn't working for those going through it. And what it does is it sparks the effort on our part administratively to look at it from a granular perspective, so we can make a determination. And you know what? What was brought to our attention was absolutely correct, and that's why it no longer exists. And my point here is, I don't want anybody to wait until a situation like this to bring a problem that they perceive to light. And I'm going to throw myself out there, because I don't feel necessarily qualified to speak for anyone else, but I want to be a person, I want to be a leader in this district whose door is open to concerns, where people can come in and state their piece without fear of it getting to a place where they don't want it. And I think there's a lot of people like me in this district, but I'll speak for myself at this juncture. And I'll re-mention that a lot of work has been done in an effort to build equity, to build cultural proficiency, and these are efforts that can't stop, and to get them out there more and to present on them more so that our alum and our community members understand what we're trying to do. That's important to us as well. Efforts in terms of, one of the other things that I think is important for our community, and this is something I'm going to give Mr. Palacios a little credit here in terms of, really advocating for a goal in which we're looking to, research exists, that students learn most from staff who are like them or share their cultural experiences. That's a struggle because the teaching force in this country, the pool is diminishing for whatever the reasons. So I'm going to make a plea to some of these young people here to possibly, I know I see engineers and others in the lot over here, but please consider if this is something you may be interested in, either advocating for or entering yourself the teaching force, because we're obviously looking for one of the other priorities here is to bring back Huntington folks because they know this community. I throw it out there as something for you to consider, and it's something that we're not going to let go at this table, as well as our efforts to engage all families, parents in the most comprehensive manner possible. The word policy was used multiple times, and please understand, and I think this is just semantics, but the high school does not establish its own policies. Policy only exists at the board level. So some of the things that have been discussed tonight, and every policy typically runs through a legal vetting and alignment with state education law, with federal law, with et cetera, and we would run through those exercises. But if we have to upgrade our policies here, and we can do so in light of what belongs in policy, we will do that as well. I think it was Landry who mentioned something about translations. I do want to point out, because it was suggested that our website is not translated, I want to make it clear that is not the case, that there is a translation bar on the bottom that will translate that language into. I think we have it set for the most common 8 languages in the district, because I think it allows up to 8. But please understand that translations are available, and predominantly every communication that goes home in this district is in at least 2 languages. And we also have services in place, and it's not just about Spanish. There are families in this district who speak Haitian Creole or Russian or Farsi, etc. We have ways to translate into those languages as well, even though it may be a little bit more challenging because it's a smaller portion of the population. We will do it. And I think the last thing I'll just mention quickly, Mrs. Saginaw mentioned the SRO. Right now, while we're talking about this, and I think Jen alluded to it as well, and I'm not faulting please understand, I'm not faulting our school resource officer for all the ills of the world at this point, but he's not here, and we're, I can't speak for other districts. I know there is districts in the neighborhood where others may be present, but while we're working through this, please recognize and understand that our goal is to make sure that our students are protected, our students are safe, our students are secure, and our students have the opportunity to do what they're coming here to do. It's a tall order, and you can criticize. It's very easy to criticize. I ask for the suggestions, and I ask once again, final plea for us to look at things together so that we can put this district on the map where it belongs, and this is a place where everybody wants to be, not just this group or that group, that the people to the left, to the right, to the north, to the south, that the only place they want to be is the Huntington School District, and we're going to need your help both in practice and word of mouth to do that. So thank you for your support in advance.
Thank you, Mr. Plansky. All right, with that, I'm going to just check, is there any further comments from board members?
I'm going to say something briefly. This is still a place where dreams come true. My dreams came true here. My parents came here as immigrants. I strongly believe in the fabric of this community and the fabric of this school. But there was a bad story here, and we cannot forget what has happened. We've got to fix it. This is not a solution for today. This is not going to end today. We got to keep working at it as a community, as board members, as an administration. Landry had us get up. How many Latinos got up? Maybe 6 of us, 7 of us. We're deciding the fate of people that aren't even here in some cases. We need to hear their voices, just like we heard your voices today. And your voices to me are so much more important than what any other administrator has to say, because you're right, you lived it. That's what's important, and that's who we should be listening to, and I thank you for that. But I certainly will continue to advocate as a board member. I thank you for believing in us as a board, because I think we do what's best for this community. And we're gonna get this right. I promise that if I have any say in it, we will get this right. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and thank you to everybody that came out tonight. We really do appreciate your attendance. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Motion. Tom, and a second. I got Bill, all in favor. Thank you, everyone. Get home safely.